everybody, and welcome to another episode of This Week in Philadelphia Sports with myself, Liam Jenkins, where, as you might have guessed it, we go over everything that's happened this week in Philadelphia Sports. Again, if you're new to this channel and you haven't yet subscribed yet, it will be amazing if you could take the time to do so. Become a part of the 20k club. We're like that close now. We're getting super close to that goal of 20k. We'd love to have you as part of our community. And hey, self-isolation sucks. It's a little bit boring and you want to talk about the Eagles. This is the best place to do it. And we've got a Discord server which you can join down below, filled with Eagles fans who play Warzone together, have discussions, all that kind of thing. So we would just love to have you as part of our community. There are 3 things I need to address before we get into today's video. Number 1, nothing has happened in Philadelphia. I mean, nothing has happened in Philadelphia sports. And it's a little bit tricky running a sports media company when sports aren't happening. Yeah, that's a problem. Firstly, just a massive thank you, because you guys have been absolutely unbelievable over the last couple of weeks. This channel has received so much support. I'm eternally thankful. Obviously, probably the only thing that happened with the Eagles last week was the Rasul Douglas report that I put out and the feedback to that, where I just wanted to preface it with a 30-second reason as to why I don't do source-related content. That blew my mind. I'd never felt such a sense of belonging before, and knowing that you will have my back now is the most amazing thing possible. So on that note, and after a huge soppy thank you, just one favour. Your support right now means absolutely everything to us. Because PSN is, you know, it's my full-time job now, it's my livelihood, it's also the job of around 30 writers or so. And the best way to support that, if you do enjoy our content, is just to check out our website. If you're not following phillysportsnetwork.com, if you don't think I'll be upset, right, I will put it on. I will listen to Somebody Else by the 1975 and I will cry about it, okay? But seriously, if you could follow along on phillysportsnetwork.com, just continue to be you and support what we put out, and read the articles we write, maybe share them with friends or on social media. That is the best way to support Philly Sports Network. It's a really trying time for us right now. It is, if you do support our work, if you do like what we do, that you can stick around, hit the subscribe button and just watch the videos and don't skip the adverts and read the articles, because that's at the end of the day what's going to keep us afloat right now. So if you could stick around, that would be absolutely amazing. Okay, but now that's out of the way, while there isn't much going on in the world of Philadelphia sports right now, what I did want to do is take a look at the Eagles pre-draft meetings, because believe it or not, we're somehow only 10 days away from the NFL draft, which will be streamed from Roger Goodell's basement. So all of the crowd that say you live in your mum's basement, not a good day for the mum's basement brand, I can tell you that much. Which means that most of the preparations by now are done. Now, COVID-19 has obviously ripped its way through the NFL. We don't really know the significant impact it's had because we're not within the teams, but you know, the top 30 meetings pretty much got abolished. Pro days have been ripped to shreds, and players are now hosting virtual pro days where any metric they post are being analysed frame by frame by everyone on Twitter. So it's a difficult time, and analysts and scouts and people who work within the talent evaluation department of the Eagles have now got to trust their gut, trust their eyes more than ever. But they have still met with 33 offensive players and around 28 defensive players. So there's a lot to get through here. But obviously with all this going on, reports of who the Eagles are meeting with and when they're meeting with them and what kind of report it is, and is it going to be a FaceTime or are they playing messenger games on iMessage, so I don't know. So I wanted to make a handy spreadsheet which detailed every player at every position so we can see where they're prioritizing, where the meetings are coming from, and what information we can get from that. So I put on my CSI hat, I got digging, and this is what I found. So let's start with the offense. The Eagles met with 3 quarterbacks. They met with James Morgan out of FIU, Shea Patterson, and Jordan Love. Now, if I'm honest, I think James Morgan is the likeliest candidate here. The Eagles love him from what I've heard by a couple of different people. I know that's probably going to be the guy they want. That's the perfect Doug Peterson prototype quarterback. And after, I genuinely believe last year, they got picked of Eastern Stick by the Chargers and they were left with Thorson. Clayton Thorson. They've got to get it right. They brought back Nate Sudfeld on a tender. I don't understand why. If he was genuinely going to be a QB2, he would have taken significant snaps by now. And in any game that's not a week 17, he's come out, handed the ball off, and gone away again. So I think this is the year the Eagles will take a quarterback. I think around 4, round 5, one of those late 4th round picks or that 5th, I think will be spent on a quarterback. So do not write it off. I put James Morgan's name at the top of the list. I don't really think Shea Patterson's on the radar, and Jordan Love is going to go way too high. Now, running back, they've only met with 3 names, and my favourite by far is Antonio Gibson, who for the 2nd year in a row has given me a Memphis running back draft crush. I miss you, Darrell Henderson. It hurts. It just does. Now, I think both him and Perine would be great complements to the Eagles' backfield. If you look at the crop of it right now, you know Miles Sanders is your running back 1. Boston Scott's going to be that Darren Sproles role, and losing Jordan Howard and Corey Clement, they need both a change of pace and a bulldozer. If you can get them together, like a north-south runner that can come in on a 3rd and 2, fantastic. If you can get someone that can do that and be a jack of all trades and the change of pace, give Miles Sanders a breather every 10 minutes. I personally think that Gibson will be the perfect fit. I know a lot of people like AJ Dillon. I would certainly not be opposed to that either, but don't write off Perine. He's got some really sexy tape if you go and watch it. It's like premium OnlyFans content. Either way, I think either of those 2 guys would be a nice addition, but it's also worth noting the Eagles haven't put much stock into running back at all. Believe it or not, they've put as much stock into running back as they have linebacker. Great. Now, wide receiver, that's a lot of names. I mean, they met with 13 wide receivers. They only met with 5 of the next highest positions. So you can see they've done their homework and then some when it comes to the wide receiver position, and I really can't blame them. What's interesting though is that a lot of those names are in round 1 and 2. You don't see that at any other position other than wide receiver when it comes to these pre-draft meetings. So they've done a Ruggs, they've done Rager, they've done Mims, they've done Jefferson. A lot of those guys that will be at pick 21, they're outside of Patrick Queen. There aren't any other names I think that they realistically met with who are options at 21, which to me is fairly indicative they are going for a wide receiver. Now, you can argue they may go for a Kenneth Murray or a Patrick Queen. They may well do, but they're doing so much background around that area at 21, it makes too much sense. Now, the other thing to note is that the other players on this list are typically either going to be burners or slot guys. There's a very specific demographic. Like last year they did it. They were looking for big slot receivers. They were looking 6'4", 6'5". We all thought, well, I thought, they were going to come in and sort of replace that Jordan Matthews possession-based receiver, and instead we got Arcega-Whiteside, who is baby Olshon, but without the Olshonymous remarks, and hasn't played much, so that's good. I do find that very interesting though, that the Eagles have gone out to recruit slot receivers or burners. There's no kind of in between. So I think, given the amount of names they've looked at, and you know, my draft crush, Courtney Davis, I love you, but the chance of a double dip is high. If you can get yourself like a Jalen Rager or Denzel Mims at 21, and then someone like a Courtney Davis a little bit later in the draft, then that's perfect. I think that's a very likely solution here for the Eagles. I know there's a lot of names on that list. Many of them you'll be familiar with from the video we put out recently. If there are any that you aren't or that we've missed, then let me know. Let me know what you think about these guys. Is there anyone on that list of people, I know Donovan Peoples-Jones may be one of them, that you could see fitting the Eagles here? At offensive tackle, the one thing I want to draw attention to is that they've met with LSU's Saahdiq Charles twice. They met him at the combine, and then they said, hey, why don't you come in with us, Saahdiq? Let's grab a bit. And then they had a top 30 visit with him. So that to me is obviously a statement of intent, that they like what they saw at the combine, they wanted to get to know him better, or it could be that they heard something at the combine and wanted to just get a better gauge of his character. That sort of thing. It can be taken in 2 ways, but there's at least an area of commitment around Saahdiq Charles. There are 2 mid-round names and 2 late-round names. I think the Eagles, realistically looking at round 5, they drafted Halapoulivaati Vaitai in round 5 a few years ago. He's now gone on, as we know, to earn a 5-year deal worth $50 million down in Detroit, and he helped the Eagles win a Super Bowl. He's played over 50 games for the Eagles despite being a backup. Like, if there's anyone that can develop tackle talent, it's Jeff Stoutland. The man is a coaching mastermind. So I think someone like Saahdiq Charles, someone in those later rounds, would be a fantastic addition. And the fact that they're only meeting with those names in the later rounds speaks volumes. It's a trust in the coaching staff, and it's probably another letter of intent that, hey, let's bring in a developmental talent on that offensive line. Whether it's center or tackle, I don't know, but it's at least worth noting. Offensive guard, they met with 2 of them, which is, I'd say, a little bit more concerning because you've only got Matt Pryor at guard at the minute. I mean, you've got Nate Herbig at centre. The depth along that line isn't fantastic at guard right now behind Sayamalo and Brooks, and that's okay. That's not the end of the world. Pryor definitely flashed some really nice potential towards the end of last season when he was tossed in wake of Brandon Brooks. But I do think that'd be wise to bring in someone else and start bringing them along, just as they did with Matt Pryor, just as they did with Sam Marlowe. Hey, it took him 3 years to come in and earn that starting role. They've got to reset that process. Both of those guys between rounds 4 and round 6, again, it's that project level. That seems to be the hot spot here for depth along the offensive line. So whether it's tackle or centre, I don't know, but I can see them going round 4 or 6 on an offensive lineman. Talking of centre, there's been some recent love, obviously, for Cesar Ruiz, and I can understand why. Probably the top centre in this talent pool, and he is an absolute freak of nature. Beyond him, though, again, mid-round names. And if I'm the Eagles and Cesar Ruiz is out of reach, the one thing I'm thinking is that they could drop back and steal him away from Dallas, who just lost Travis Frederick. So if they do that, that's a very sneaky move. I like it. They've done a Dallas Goedert all over again. I'll be all for it. But you want to try and make sure you're filling out those roster needs first. And centre is a little bit lower on that list than some of the others. So I can see that again. It'll be an offensive lineman between 4 and 6. Probably a centre, if not a guard or a swing tackle. Someone that's got that versatility to play everywhere. Will probably be the ultimate dream there for the Eagles. I've been quite vocal personally about the Eagles needing a third tight end. And they've met with a plethora of developmental names, including the top name in the entire class, Adam Troutman. I don't think the Dayton tight end is going to be the target here. But the fact that Cincy's DeGuara has FaceTimed the Eagles, to me, again, it's one of those statement of intent. It's that they're not just at an event and have met with a player they've liked. They've gone through his tape and they've gone, well, let's bring him in for a visit. We can't. Let's call him on FaceTime. Let's understand that character. Late round guy. Let's not forget where Trey Burton was in proceedings before he came to the Eagles in 2014. The Eagles typically like to carry 4 tight ends, and Richard Rodgers has abolished that over the last couple of years. And Josh Perkins he's almost like the Chase Claypool, isn't he? Where he's not quite a tight end, not quite a receiver, can do a little bit of both. They need to get themselves a solidified TE3. It wouldn't be surprising to me if they do that in the very late rounds of this draft, which is where I think 3 of those names are probably going to fall anyway, so that makes a lot of sense. But the main takeaways from that, though, are that obviously rounds 4 to 6 seem to be the offensive hotspot. In terms of everywhere else, there's been a plethora of work put into wide receiver in comparison to everywhere else. It's shocking, really. They've met with 13 wide receivers and yet virtually no other prospect. It's a bit weird. So there's obviously a very high chance that they double dip at wide receiver. I can see that being the case. And the fact that they've met with Sadiq Charles twice also stands out. So let's quickly flip over to the defensive side of the ball, see how we're getting on there. Okay, now defensive end is a little bit interesting. It's not surprising to see that they're meeting with so many prospects, but it is surprising that they're all in that round 3 to 5 range, roughly. I mean, Bradley and Nay, I know they got to know at the Senior Bowl weekend, and he was someone that stood out to me at the time. But you've essentially got 2 higher tier names, 2 lower tier names, and that's an interesting dynamic because Derek Barnett's going into year 4 of his contract. BG won't be around forever, and unless you're banking on both Sweat and Miller taking a significant step forward next year, then you're gonna need some depth. If they go lower, it's probably a higher vote of confidence in those guys. If they go higher, gonna be the opposite. So I don't know. I think if you go lower in the draft, again, you're banking on the coaching staff to turn those guys around. Be totally okay with picking a guy up much later than that. Like round 5 to 6 seems like the ideal range for me. I would understand if they took someone like Gross Matos in the first round, but I can't see it. I really can't see it. At defensive tackle, we've got the second name that the Eagles have met with twice, and that is James Lynch. He had a top 30 visit and a FaceTime, so I thought that most top 30s were going to transition into FaceTimes. Lynch has got both. They're calling him. You know, he's getting a "you up" text. It's very intriguing. I'm going to try and take a look at his tape and see why the Eagles are meeting with these guys twice. But I think there's like 3 of them, so if I can put them all into a video, then I definitely will for you guys. But I think this has probably been impacted by the Javon Hargrave move. I mean, like, realistically now, you've got your 4 guys in Hargrave, Cox, Jackson, and of course Hassan Ridgeway. Now Anthony Rush to me would be the perfect guy to come in and relieve Javon Hargrave, but a lot of those guys they're meeting with are those A-gap run stoppers. They're nose tackles, they're run penetrators, they're not power rushers. And that to me says, hey look, let's give Anthony Rush some competition. Ridgeway showed some nice potential as a pass rusher. He's your Fletcher Cox guy. Malik Jackson is that versatile, can do everything, will stick him everywhere guy. Let's bring in some competition then for that backup spot behind Javon Hargrave. So it wouldn't surprise me if they do go for a defensive tackle later on. That's the sort of player they're looking for. Linebacker, Bloody hell, this is bad. They've met with three. I think they've got three on the roster, and they've met with three. I don't get it. It's their most prominent need by far and away. If you rolled into the season right now with the wide receiver corp like it is, you've still got Deshaun Jackson. Alshon Jeffrey's there. You've got J-Jaw that could improve. You've got Greg Ward. We've seen worse. It's not perfect, but it's not the end of the world. At linebacker, there's definite need for improvement because they've let a lot of that core go. Camu's gone. Bradham's gone. It's left a kind of special teams aces that are looking to step up, or Nate Gary. So it's interesting that they have met with Patrick Queen. There are rumours that they'd met with Kenneth Murray as well, but outside of that, they're not really talking to anyone. So it's like they're kind of jostling up in my mind. Do they really buck the trend and go linebacker at pick 21, or do they just go later on? A guy like Michael Pickney, but if Pickney's there and you're studying Miami, I don't know why you wouldn't go and look at someone like Shaquille Quarterman, but that's just me. All right, The last time the Eagles selected a linebacker in round 1 of the NFL draft that wasn't named Marcus Smith was 1979. That's a long time ago. That was 10, 20, several years ago. Now at cornerback, they've also met with a few names. Now the Darius Slay and the Cal Roby-Coleman moves have obviously happened during this process, so the profile of player they were looking at may well be no longer relevant. They've met with a flurry of mid-round picks, and many of them are projected to be nickel cornerback. Outside of Davion Taylor, who's had a different kind of meeting with the Eagles and stands at 6'1", they're all nickel guys. And the Eagles have got a plethora of those already, so I don't know if they're going to move on from a smaller corner or not. But obviously what I put out the other day with Rasul Douglas, if we're to assume he's gone, Davion Taylor could well be that, the transitional, the conveyor belt of, do you know what, Rasul Douglas didn't work, let's bring in Davion Taylor, who's a little bit shorter, not quite a good a tackler, but is good around the catch point, out of Colorado. Let's see what he can do. I get the mentality. And finally at safety, they've met with two players, and not great there. I really like Jeremy Chinn. I think Jeremy Chinn and Kyle Duggar are my two favourite safeties in this entire class. I can't see the Eagles taking one early, especially after they've gone out of their way to bring in Will Parks, Jalen Mills, Rodney McLeod. Like, they've just stacked that safety position with a bunch of prove-it deals and essentially gone, fight for it, whoever does well gets a new deal. How's that? Right, like, there's locking them in the elimination chamber. I think that's what they're going to do. Bearing in mind, they let Chauncey Gardner-Johnson slip all the way down to... I don't want to talk about it, all right? I'm not over it, and I don't want to talk about it, and it's annoyed me. I can see them doing the same again. There'll be a name on the board. They won't pick him. It's just one of those things. But I genuinely feel as though if we're going to look at that whole picture, that round 1's probably going to be a wide receiver. Rounds 2, 3, and 4 would not surprise me if they were on defense. And then rounds 5, 6, and 7, offense project players. That's, to me, what it looks like. Because the offense guys you're looking at, someone like a James Morgan, someone like a Sadiq Charles, that's your 4th, your 5th round pick. Anything after that looks to be like that late round defensive bulk that the Eagles like to add. So in terms of what we've learned, we've known they really like wide receivers, they hate linebackers, nickel cornerbacks are somehow still a thing, safeties don't exist, and it's all going to kick off in 10 days time. Now we are going to do something special for the draft, so I hope you stick around for that one. If you enjoyed this video, guys, make sure you leave a like, hit that subscribe button. From myself, Liam Jenkins, as always, thank you so much for all of your support. I will see you next time.